Hi guys, this is FNGR, and today joining us is That Creepy Reading, and a fair amount of my friends, and a special treat. I ended up having Radix join us at some point in time. He's one of my old friends and a top tier musician. Check out his work when you get a chance, as well as Creepies. Radix happens to be a furry these days. We're addressing Dogpatch Press and an article he posted on his website. My opinion has changed back and forth a couple times as we were going through this article. At first, when hearing about Dogpatch putting out an article defending cub porn, whether he had wrote it or not, he had chose to host the piece. And from what I had heard, Dogpatch had stuck to his guns, at least initially, to keeping the article up. The article is roughly 15 pages long. We don't read the whole damn thing. I'm suspecting Dogpatch Press might not have done the same thing as well before publishing it. And though throughout the recording I do point that out, I'm also reminded that Dogpatch, when people tried to tell him, he didn't just simply block people, he fired people, friends and fans alike, some of which worked for him for either nothing or next to nothing. There are two videos from a YouTuber by the name of Coyote Lovely. I want to suggest following videos. Here's a 16-second clip. It's a clip from Dogpatch Press in the doghouse.
Do you remember Simba from The Lion King when he's singing, "I just can't wait to be king"? Okay, I want to start this video with a very simple question. Would you radio edit Simba from The Lion King at that point in time? If you said no, congratulations, you're a normal human being.
By the way, Coyote, with all due respect, normal people might not want to radio edit Simba at all. But I get what you meant. You gotta understand, that sounds really screwy. That one's basically related to the video we're doing today. The second being Dogpatch Press has been thrown to the wolves. I'm going to play a brief 10-second clip from that one as well.
Tends to treat his employees, which I'm using a big asterisk on that because apparently none of them were paid despite Dogpatch Press actually making plenty of money off of his site.
Oh, look at that, another white dog who isn't paying the scrubs who work under him. Dr. Wolf. I encourage you to check out both of these videos for this ongoing garbage fire. As for the thumbnail of Dogpatch with Growly the Growler, I was provided with the information from a former employer, Indigo Bang. Bang was nice enough to point out that Dogpatch wasn't aware of Growly's sexual conviction. I'll include a link to that down below. But much like Dogpatch Press's previous friend, Sanji Naidavis, you might remember that fine fellow for being the same guy who was lusting over Snake Thing's two cousins and receiving porn of the pre-forementioned underage boys. Dogpatch doesn't like to come forward about certain people if they're to the left. At least not publicly. I've said in the past what I thought about Dogpatch Press. And throughout this call, I do go back and forth on what may or may not have been a reasonable mistake. But how Dogpatch has handled situations with his friends and his fans, and after making such a massive fumble, has left me speechless. I mean, that's complete bullshit because I'm talking right here. Hey, Dogpatch, I know you talked about priority targets. Me hitting you isn't going to put a lot of butts in the seats, but just so that there's zero misunderstandings when it comes to you, I know some people like to say that it's just business. It's nothing personal. In your case, it's a pleasure. In full disclosure, I did shuffle around a bit of the recording to get to the more full juicy parts. The section in the link down below is called Perpetuating and Normalizing. The article is very C-SPAN until it gets to the interesting part, with all due respect. I'm just trying to get to the more relevant interests first. Thank you and have a nice day.
So scroll past indulgence and taboo, or
yeah, I'm skimming through, and it's basically using vague language here. So if I miss it, I miss it. Look, like I said, let's see. Negatives of problematic kinks.
Is that where we should go?
I think it's perpetuating and normalizing child sex abuse via media. That might be it. Oh, cub art. Yep, that's it.
Where's that at?
Perpetuating and normalizing child sexual abuse via media. It's right underneath negative problematic kinks. Actually, yeah, it's part of, I guess. It's slightly bold. Two paragraphs down.
All right, cool. And this is like where the drama has.
I'm assuming. Yeah. You know what? I'm going to give. I'll give Dogpatch Press for people who are like sitting there saying he took one look at this and put it up. I think he did it, Anthony. I think he probably like skimmed 2 or 3 paragraphs and says, close enough, put it up. Because that's probably what I would have done, because this is fucking massive. He probably said, this'll fill out a couple pages. That sounds very fucking probable.
It does.
And you know what?
This they use a lot of big language in this, and I could totally see the person reading this not understanding, like accidentally like fucking up here, and like just kind of not understanding what they wrote and just putting it up because it looked like big words. I don't know what dog patch press is, but let's do this. Perpetuating and normalizing child sexual abuse via media. All right. I'm going to be curt here, in this section in particular, sometimes in detail discusses child abuse. Prepare yourself. All right. There we go. And I can't play Night in the Woods while I do this too, which is shitty, but whatever.
Damn it.
While I want to make something extremely clear, I'm making a distinction between roleplay and media as it relates to age play and what's colloquially known as cub art. Roleplay is typically between two adults playing out some kind of fantasy, as we discussed above. Perhaps it could be in indulging in abusive dynamics, or perhaps it could be simply attempts on adults' parts to heal. When it comes to child sexual abuse situations, typically shortened to CSA, media is the ultimate negative. Not in the gray area that roleplay represents, but because of the concepts mentioned above, in tandem with its potential for perpetuating abuse, it's not only does its content. Okay, that's a grammar thing. You shouldn't have said it's, because whenever you say it's, it means it is. So, it is
it doesn't
content.
have an apostrophe.
It still reads weird. Not only does it, I would have just take out the word it and just replaced it with the. Not only
that probably would have been better.
Not only does the content need to be contained, but its consumers policed as well. And the problem is that for the most part, it's not fully contained. Well, okay. Well, here's another question. If the psychiatrist says, and I quote, that like the do-overs helps with the coping mechanism, if you were raped as a child, wouldn't the same logic apply? Like, I'm not trying to justify this. I'm saying, by the words of your own paper, it seems that, like, while you're trying to make an argument for containing this stuff, that the arguments you made earlier seems that would only do more harm than good to the abuse victims. And I'm not even sure if I even agree with that, I don't know what to think on this. I'm just saying that this paper's pretty inconsistent so far. It's not fully contained, nor are its potential abusers policed properly. Cub art in the furry community ultimately has too much freedom to spread, with potential to simultaneously enable abusers that come with the content, as well as the potential victims hiding in the shadows. Though, before we get into the nitty-gritty of why cub porn perpetuates and normalizes child sexual abuse, we need to address one very, very important aspect about what people who are into cub porn for the innocence reasons we discussed in this section. Okay, one very, very important aspect. I'm sorry, I'm dying. All right.
Yeah, I'm dying too. Like I
innocent reasons
I can
to be in the
totally
cub
look, as
porn.
much as I'd like to bury dog patch press, I could see where this slipped through the cracks, just because it's kind of mind numbing. There's a lot to take in, and if you look on that regular site, it's like usually dumb furry shit, with all due respect. It's like, oh, look at what if your anthro is a tour? And you turn your brain off, but this isn't a turn your brain off kind of fucking piece where, oh, look, it's a furry convention. Oh, look, a Nazi fur. And all of a sudden there's like 15 pages of, in-depth fucking thought-provoking bullshit that maybe didn't... The venue was wrong. It totally
the venue
was. Yeah. Probably
okay,
shouldn't have put that
so let me just reread this, because I think I fucked up the reading on it.
Okay.
We need to address one very, very important, just two varies. Good. Glad you emphasized it. I would have just bolded the word important and then like put it in small caps, but that's it. That's not me. That's you. What about people who are into cub porn for the innocence reasons we discussed before in this section? Namely, what about the people who simply appreciate it for its perceived cuteness, for its consensual and overall non-abusive visuals? It may surprise you to find that for the most part, people who are into cub porn aren't always in it for coercive and abusive dynamics. Some simply like Lolly and Shota, for example, for how adorable the participants appear, regardless of whether they are like children in the end. As discussed above, some consumers of this kind of media, the fact that they are ultimately children is effectively erased in their minds, making it a gray area more than anything.
I think we found the raw nerve.
And what about the victims of CSA? Shouldn't they have some kind of outlet to heal themselves from their abuse in the forms that what about victims of CSA? Shouldn't they have some kind of outlet to heal themselves from their abuse in forms other than roleplay? If consuming erotic rape media is helpful to the rape victim we interviewed above, wouldn't it follow that CSA victims would potentially enjoy placing themselves in the same sort of scenario through fictional, and I want to heavily stress here, fictional media sometimes? And finally, what of children who grew up healthy and sexual? We define healthy in this context as understanding consent issues in a thorough fashion. Okay, you know what? The problem is that fucking kids, this is the raw nerve right here. Fucking kids don't know what sex is. They don't understand what that means. They don't understand what the fucking decision means. As children, you make poor, horrible decisions, and you can't be trusted to make that consent thing. So I'm sorry. This seems a lot like a argument for children who no children in any context cannot consent to legal sex.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yep.
And I know they go on here to say that they legally can't consent, which is an extremely important distinction to make in this discussion. But you just said you can't say that children in any context understand consent issues in a thorough fashion.
That's just blatantly lying to other people.
I want to say lying, but I would say that this person lacks the understanding of the meaning behind the law. Because I'm not arguing from a legal perspective here. The law exists because children do not have the mental capacity to consent. Well, just like your fucking dog, it can't consent to sex.
No, I understand that.
That's to winter green.
Do you think, and this is going to be pure speculation, I'm going to assume, do you think that person made this article with the intent of either malicious or otherwise to have that as like maybe we're going to sneak this in here, or maybe this was an oops or what?
I'm based on all the other stuff and the fact that this is nearly halfway through the fucking article, I'm going to say that I think this is just their opinion on it. Because basically, like I said before, this is basically an opinion piece, right? So I think this is just them writing their opinion, and their opinion happens to be controversial in this case.
There's sprinklings of things that may potentially be from fucking some authorities, but they snuck their opinion in there.
The guy made an okay argument with the psychologist, right? Where the psychologist is like, hey, it can help with do-overs and stuff like that. And it's like, that's great, but this isn't a argument for adults doing something fancy involving children. No. This right there is a non-direct argument for children being able to healthfully, identify consent in a sexual situation. They can't. That is fact. Children cannot consent no matter how much education they have. Even if they're a prodigy on what sex is, what it can lead to, diseases, protection, and, all the whole 9 yards, they can't consent because children are stupid. Children lack the wisdom to understand the ramifications this could lead to for the rest of their natural lives. So when they sneak a thing in there like, we define healthy in this context as understanding consent issues through in a thorough fashion, it's like, no, they can't. I want to read on to see if they like walk back on this, and I just got angry for no fucking reason, and I'm gonna feel stupid. Because like they're trying to like maybe they're trying to like state an argument against what they just said, and they're gonna disagree with it later.
Sure.
That's what I'm hoping, because this is kind of fucked up. Not gonna lie. We typically refuse to acknowledge these situations happen, such as children exploring safely with other. Oh, come on. The next fucking sentence.
What?
Oh, God. Is it that one?
We typically refuse to acknowledge these situations happen, such as children exploring safely with other children. No. There's no safe thing about that.
Oh my God.
There's nothing safe about that. I mean, they're gonna do it, but they shouldn't.
What did they tell us in sex ed class? The safest way is to not do it.
Or to say no.
Like, if you want to jerk off as a kid, I'm not gonna fucking judge you, and I don't want to hear about it. But like, exploring with other children, really, like that's
a big
like that's no. I don't know if that's even I wouldn't describe that as safe. I describe that as treacherous waters right there. Especially since in some states they can both be charged with pedophilia, which is kind of fucked up. Yeah, in some states you can be charged with pedophilia. Like both, like if you like two 14-year-olds can have sex with each other and then both be charged as pedophiles.
What the hell?
Yeah. Like that's kind of fucked up, but that's just the archaic nature of some of the laws we have, and state by state and stuff like that. But like kids exploring safely with other children, like let's go back to the top sentence here. We define healthy in this context as understanding consent issues in a thorough fashion. Kids can't understand that. They don't, because they lack the wisdom that understanding implies. So when you say, such as children, like, exploring safely with other children, it's like that. There is no consent there, inherently. Just because no one gives consent doesn't necessarily mean that it's safe. It just means that they don't know what the fuck they're doing and they could hurt themselves in more than just the physical way, but also psychologically. And thus, perhaps they wish to replay some kind of fantasy from those. Oh my God, you're not helping yourself here. You're really not. I'm trying to give you the benefit of the doubt, but you're not helping yourself here.
Is it possible that there might have been malicious intent and they're like, look, based off of this, and they went to some really roundabout way to get the...
the more I'm reading it, yeah, it looks like there could have been some malicious intent here. Like, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt here. I'm going to say that this is their personal opinion on the matter, and that they didn't realize it was this controversial or this kind of fucked up. I'm gonna think that this is from someone who has a very, very ignorant opinion on, and a very, very like bad understanding of how like sexuality can like fuck people. I'm not saying we should repress children in any sense of the word. I'm just saying that kids exploring sexuality of other children is a really fucking bad idea. It is. It's not like something that kids probably should doing with each other. Like they should be educated
I'd like
about
to state
it.
for the record that it's also around midnight. So if Creepy Reading says something wrong because he says repress, I was like, we're on the internet. I definitely would. I would definitely put restrictions on those kids.
No. I put restrictions on them too. I'm not trying to say like we put a chastity belt on like 13 and 14
Well,
year
no,
olds.
Obviously not something that's going to physically.
That's what I mean by that. Like we shouldn't like we shouldn't like
I got
deprive
the
them
feeling,
of information.
I understood that you're trying to say, I'm not trying to say that someone's sexuality is bad or wrong, but I do feel that there should be times where you should guide kids to wait. You know?
Definitely. You should definitely like encourage them to wait. And I mean, I'm not a child sex expert.
Nope.
Like
nobody here has any kind of medical, learning or understanding. And it's midnight.
I'm not a child. I do know though that like telling kids to explore each other's bodies is gonna lead to something bad.
Yeah, that sounds.
Like I think that like I don't know, like that there is a way to explore it, I guess, but not with other kids. I feel like that's a personal journey. I don't know. There's no way of saying this without looking like a fucking weirdo.
Yeah, no shit. Back in my day, we found whatever magazine you could in the house. We didn't have your damn internet. Oh, shit.
That's why as adults we need to hide magazines around the house and keep their internet privilege.
Well, look, whatever. Fuck off. I'll have you know, back when I was a kid, we had to make do with Marvel's swimsuit issue.
We hide Marvel swimsuit issue in porn logs outside.
Whatever.
And they have to find the porn log.
Yeah. Whatever.
Which is something that people apparently used to do.
It's like an Easter egg hunt.
Jesus.
But
except
lewd.
for porn.
Whatever.
But yeah, like something I will like give this guy is that like when I say kids, I'm referring to like 13 to 14, not like.
All right, I feel it's safe that I feel that with all due and complete respect to furries, that's bullshit. But take me with a grain of salt here. I don't feel furries should be telling kids anything about sex.
Yeah, no.
I feel
definitely.
completely. You could punch me in the face. I stand behind that. If you're a furry, don't talk to kids. You'll get. I guess unless they're yours.
I'm not gonna say that furries as a whole aren't able to be educated on it. I'm just saying that this opinion piece right here is full of shit.
Yeah.
Like maybe we should talk to the psychiatrist guy again about what he thinks.
Yeah.
So, because I've been spacing out this whole time, is it like defending cub porn? Is that confirmed to this point?
No. This is definitely I don't know if it's necessarily defending cub porn, but it's certainly defending children having sex with each other.
Step on your opinion. Could you see where someone probably read the first couple paragraphs of this and said, close enough. Maybe that's what happened at Dog Patch.
Maybe.
There is a lot of this. Like if you look through this and just skimmed it, you might have missed somewhere in there. I'm trying to give somewhat of a little bit of a benefit of the doubt. This could have easily slipped through the cracks though. Like I mean,
after reading the whole like positive stuff, it's like there's some actually interesting reading here.
I state for the record, I did come out and the whole idea is like I'm gonna get him, but like after looking at this, going, maybe you just fucked up. Jesus.
Yeah. Okay. Explore. This is one really. I to use their language. This is one real problematic paragraph. Safety of other children, and thus perhaps they wish to replay some kind of fantasy from those days, wanting to remember fondly on those early days of exploration. This is, of course, not to say abuse can't happen in child-to-child dynamics. That's the... Do you not see why this shouldn't be encouraged? Because abuse can happen in child-to-child dynamics, and it's 10 times worse when it happens between two adults. That is like when they're the most impressionable. This is why we don't have kids have sex with each other. Oh my god, you even see why it's bad, but you just can't connect the dots.
Yeah.
Young teenagers sometimes rape younger children.
Stop.
Oh no.
This is really bad. I'm sorry, dude. I tried to give you the benefit of the doubt. We read that whole beginning part just to give context, but
word.
Just so you know, I believe puberty starts between at the earliest 8 years old and usually at the latest 13.
Yeah. For most people, yeah.
Yeah. The unfortunate situation is that, for the most part, the consumers of cub porn are innocent. Without the context of the positives and the gray areas mentioned above, this seems absurd and downright abusive. Even to state that people who enjoy... Okay, yeah, this is defending cub porn. Say that this content are anything but innocent. But the truth of the matter is that a good majority of the cub community doesn't want abusers. In fact, did you know that in the cub community, there's been a significant pushback towards abusers who exist within their community for a rather long time? I mean, I kind of guess, because, you know, you don't need all the people looking at you know, kind of funny with the weird child porn, and then also having people who consume actual child porn within your community. Like that's like kind of like a survival mechanism at this point. I interviewed a major there are major players in the cub community.
What?
Oh no.
Okay, so look. If this were anime and someone said major players in the lolly community, we all know who we would have thought of immediately. So
major players, so like celebrities of the couple community.
Well, like I said, if there's a Digimon out there, I'm assuming that there's an equivalent in furry. Maybe not $300,000, $4,000 on Patreon, fucking big, but something.
I like to do that.
I interviewed a major player in the cub community who's been around for a while. You could essentially call them a gray muzzle on the condition of anonymity. He chose to speak to me. Here's our interview. Oh my god. Like, does this person not understand that, like, people who are, like, kind of into something that could be equated to child porn might be willing to lie to you?
Heavens to Betsy.
I have a theory.
I mean, pedophiles, they, like, create networks with each other and have communities where they try to protect each other, because when you're doing something illegal, it's always good to have buddies behind your back who would probably be arrested by the same sort of people, you know, outside of it. That's why they're kind of hard, because they have these underground communities that are kind of hard to penetrate.
The deep state.
Yeah.
Pedophile mafia.
So,
That's
like,
how mafia works.
Ah, damn it, he beat me to it.
Yeah, I knew it.
He sat around waiting all day.
This is just bad interview. This is just bad research.
Well, when you make the remark, so here's the whole thing. They either have to be really stupid or this was a game plan. I'm starting to think it's a game plan.
Yeah, I'm just so you know. I'm not even gonna make a definitive statement on whether cub porn is bad or good. I don't think there's been. I don't know if there's even been a push to even definitively say one way or the other. My gut reaction says you probably should put these people on some sort of watch list, but I don't think the art itself needs to be banned altogether.
Here's the current stance I have right now. Just considering all the whole backlash, if I could advise you as any goddamn level of common sense, it isn't going to do you any good. So if you could put it down, I suggest you can. And if you can't put it down, that answers your own question and why you're probably getting stared at really bad right now.
Right.
Yeah, like, it's something that I wouldn't be public about at all. If you do it, I'd probably put you on a watch list just to make sure. But I don't think the problem is the art itself, because, as stated before, no one gets hurt. And if no one's getting hurt, then there's nothing bad. But that said, the people who would be interested in this are probably have some screws.
There's a counter argument to that. When you look at it like this, like look at Kiro's people. Before, in the past,
Kira the Wolf.
Yeah, Kira the Wolf. Basically, back in the day, I've heard the podcast where, you know, Medicare and a bunch of those people got together and they sat there and talked about it and said, this would have been some lone weirdo trying to screw a deer back in the day. But here's the difference now. We're on the internet these days. We're in a world where basically people of similar likes and interests can spitball and bounce off of each other's. So when someone says, oh, we're part of the cub porn part of the furry community, the fact that the art exists allows people like this, of like minds, to congregate, to get together, to bounce ideas off each other, to get more comfortable with each other, to explore and grow. The fact that the art exists itself, one could certainly argue, probably pushes people's limits to, you know, get more comfortable. Maybe it's baby steps. Maybe it's the same way you might look at, like, you know, does weed always lead to harder drugs? Not necessarily, but there's going to be a couple. And I think that there's going to
be a couple, but my argument to that would be like BDSM. You know, there are a community of people who like basically non-consensual shit, usually involving rape situations and stuff like
I
that.
thought BDSM
Yet-
was basically just putting people up. That's not
bec-
necessarily non-consensual. Am I right?
It doesn't have to be
non-
non-consensual, but there's a good chunk of that is.
Non-con is a factor in BDSM, but not a lot.
It's not the whole.
No, actually, a lot of it is a control factor, but it's all very consensual, and non-con is kind of even weirded out in the BDSM community at times.
Right. I'm just saying that just because like people get together and like I said, if it's a non-consensual stuff and with the BDSM stuff, that doesn't mean that people are going to get together and then start cutting each other open and doing like making it progressively worse, or get the idea that it would be a good idea to do this in the first place. Like some sick fuck might, but those sick fucks are still going to be sick fucks regardless if this exists or not.
All right, so
But that said, if this does exist, at least you have a watch list, right?
I do want to make sure, and I'm going to try and put this at the start of the disclaimer when I said I could probably potentially let him off the hook. But from what I heard, people were trying to tell Dog Patch to take it down, and he doubled down. So at that point, fuck him.
I mean, I'm more talking about from the writer.
I'm talking about the
this
hoster
point.
of the article. We're basically like,
Okay,
if people
so-
tapped you on the shoulder and said, "Hey, you might have made a mistake," and you decided to be stubborn at that point, fuck you. You should have listened. I had a situation with that when the Hateful and fucking goddamn what's his name Foxler, but I fixed that within like very shortly, basically, quickly enough, and I was like, yeah, I fucked up. I didn't want to listen because I was tired and exhausted, and shit like that happens. But
Hey, FNGR, worst things from the furry community. Am I right?
What is
this?
Is this the worst thing?
This certainly qualifies for the list.
I mean, if we ever go back to it, I assumed you're passing, but sure.
Oh, no, I'm still doing it. It's still on my list of things I need to do.
So we're adding, we could swipe. That'd be a real dick move, too. That'd piss the shit out of him. So originally we were going to include Foxler, but instead we're including this fine gentleman named Dog Patch Press because we knew this would make his day.
Ouch.
That's right. We're taking a Nazi fur off there and putting you in there, pal. Doesn't that hurt?
I get the feeling that Foxler is just the dude who's seeking attention and not necessarily.
I think there's a little bit of that. There's certainly I can't tell you what percentage here is. I definitely feel comfortable with people keeping an eye on him.
No, definitely. I feel like keeping an eye on him would be a great idea. But based on what I've seen and from all the stuff I looked into, he's fabricated. I can most certainly say he's fabricated drama against himself that was pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
Right.
And I feel like he's intentionally fabricated this drama to make people look at him like that. And I mean,
he's pretty broken.
Yeah. Anyway, God, I'm just trying to process all this. Like, these are some really problematic stuff.
I wonder
some real quality.
I wonder if Digi and Patch are going to team up.
Well, there's a difference.
It's a match made in hell.
There's a difference. Dog Patch never had anything that fucking drew. By the way, is that you, Hateful?
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah. Then did you hear me apologize for Foxer one more time?
Well, yeah, but I said no comment.
Okay, well, still.
All right.
I wasn't paying attention because I'm keeping the screen on the document for the reading.
All right, cool. Let me just get back to reading this. In fact,
go ahead.
Question: so you've been involved with major parts of the cub art community for a long time now. This kind of artwork in particular, of course, has the potential to draw in abuses of all kinds. Well, I know too that the cub community wants it to be some sort of safe haven. Can you tell me some of the struggles that arise from trying to keep out abuse? Like, this person just really wants to give this guy the benefit of the doubt. Like, it tends to mostly come in the form of forum moderation, strong guidelines about content and conversation topics. One of the things I've noticed dealing with the handful of genuinely abusive people is that sooner or later they tend to out themselves in the hopes of finding more like-minded individuals. When that happens, if it's discovered, they get shown the door. Zero tolerance for felonious behavior or conversation is pretty typical. That's respectable. I don't necessarily have any complaints about that. Like, if you're doing what you're doing, yeah, strong guidelines are going to be a must, you know, like shit.
Yeah, which paragraph we on right now? Down from the top?
Right under, I don't know. If you go under to the non-consent, like the bad parts or whatever, you go past the children stuff, the unfortunate situation, and then it's the interview.
Okay, yeah, here we are. Sorry. I've spaced a couple times because it's crazy. Go ahead.
Of course, it sometimes can get a little muddy because a lot of cub art forums and chat groups are also very roleplay heavy. So sometimes it can be difficult to tell the difference. Well, that's the angle. That's the angle the guy's going for. Oh, man, we try to keep the pedophiles out, but sometimes, you know, we don't know what's an actual pedophile.
We fought for 5 minutes and gave up.
Yeah, like... Well, the majority of people in the groups...
Go ahead.
Like, okay, no. Let me get back on this tangent here, right? This dude is like, okay, we have strong guidelines and we kick people out the moment we figure them out. Now he's like, well, it's a little bit of a gray area. No, it's not.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, Lord, dude, you're not doing yourself any favors. So sometimes it's difficult to tell the difference. While the vast majority of people in the groups that I manage or participate in tend to place themselves in the cub position, there's always those who want to be an adult or older cub. But even that isn't indicative of predalicious.
Did you say predalicious?
Yeah, I can't. I'm sorry. It's in.
We should do a predalicious.
I have just redub where it's predalicious.
I have dyslexia, so I tend to fuck shit up, especially with this fucking italics, where letters kind of blend in with one another. I've learned how to kind of cope with it.
Yeah. God.
Predilections. There we go.
Yeah. I still think predalicious is way better, but go ahead.
One's predalicious. Usually they're there just because they like looking at cute things, and it's like, okay, okay, I'm gonna break this down here. So the first half of the paragraph, right, kind of reads like, hey, this is very morally gray, and sometimes it's hard to spot them, and then the second half is kind of innocuous. It's like, oh yeah, sometimes when they role play they want to be an adult or an older one, and it's like, I assume that exists within the community. So why would you preface this by just saying the first part? It sounds almost like you're trying to defend an accusation that wasn't being made, which makes me think that you're hiding something. I mean, also the subject matter, but you know, that's just me trying to be skeptical.
Okay.
Question, right, because there could be a multitude of other reasons to take on the roles that aren't inherently abusive. Does this sort of hunting, as I suppose you could characterize it, come in the form of trying to find other abusive individuals? Does it tend to come in the form of fishing for potential victims, such as users in forums that may be misrepresenting their age, or does it come in other forms entirely? Oh my god.
Oh dear, what happened?
Do you think that they're pretending to feign ignorance when they're using certain terms here, the person asking the question?
Yeah, like, the reason why I fucked up there is because the phishing, it is an actual term used online. So, but they use the term, but then they also explain what the term meant. So I was confused.
Okay.
Phishing is like when you basically look for people, so you don't have to say for potential victims. You can just say phishing because that's an actual term people use.
Yeah, like catfishing.
Yeah.
Catfishing.
Yeah.
But I read the first sentence in the next paragraph, and I kind of died a little.
Okay, I'll read
It's
that.
like, if you don't want to appear to be a pedophile, right, and you want to appear like you're hunting people down, for doing the pedophilia shit, and you wanted to keep it focused on Cub, when you hear things like, yeah, they want to roleplay parent, babysitter, or whatever, with the understanding that the person on the other side of the screen is a real adult with adult judgment. Every forum I've ever seen or been a part of had very strict rules for members of our community being over 18. And not just, oh, well, we say that we look for things. Every time, if there is any sort of suggestion that a member might actually be underage, they were K-lined with extreme prejudice. What?
I've never heard the term K-lined.
I never heard of it either. It sounds like some sort of like IP ban type thing.
Anybody got K-lined?
K-lined.
I guess not. I guess we're all normies.
Okay. K-line. When a user is K-lined, short for kill line, the user is banned from a certain server either for a certain amount of time or permanently. This is recorded in line. This is recorded as the line in the server IRC Dominion domain configurations prefix K, hence kill line. Okay, so basically it's like an IP ban.
Okay.
And it's used for IRC chats, which is like a very old kind of...
Yeah, the only time I heard about IRC chat was pub crawl.
I used to do IRC stuff, like not like RP or anything, but I used to be like in My Little Pony IRC chats back in 2012.
I'm assuming that was during your pod thing. That's what pub crawl essentially was. It came out of that, and they eventually dropped IRC when they left Brony entirely.
I like the IRC. I like those IRC chats. Those are really nice to have during the radio station days.
Yeah, it was a thing.
It was pretty nice, but like, yeah. All right, they're K-lined of extreme prejudice, and this is something that was not only policed by moderators, but large chunks of the community were also on the lookout and would be very quick to flag them. But this is the risk of adult-oriented internet forums on the whole. Really, anybody who's ran an adult site of any size or has to deal with these things who's zeroed in on them. So I guess it's a mix, but the handful of times I've seen any sort of predatory behavior in public, it's been fishing for like-minded individuals. All right, so I'm gonna give this guy this much. When I was running my Discord server, I had a NSFW art room, and it wasn't necessarily for porn. It was just kind of like, hey, if you're I'm into horror community, so if there's like a excessive amount of blood and gore and violence and or just, you know, because like people draw fucked up shit, and you know, I mean, that's what we're here to see. But then it got posted with a lot of porn, and then people were like, hey, you do know that like some people in your server are like 15 to 17 years old, and it's like, at that point, it's like, because Discord doesn't really do a good job of making sure you're over 18 before you click that button. So I originally thought that Discord's like regulation of it would have been fine.
It's a click.
It's not. It's just a click. So I said, look, I'm not gonna make my server 18 plus. That's stupid. So it is kind of hard to manage an adult forum, especially when people lie about their age. And we don't live in South Korea where you literally need a social security card to enter the internet.
Think you mean North? Or
no, in South Korea, in order to like sign up for things, you need to use your social security card number.
Oof.
That's
like
stupid.
If you want to play an MMO, you have to use a social security card number. And if it shows that you're under 18, they put automatic parental guide locks.
I wish we had those.
I don't. I think that it should be up to the parents, and I think parents just need to be less stupid. But
I mean,
I don't need the government telling me when I can and can't play video games, especially if, like, let's say I'm a kid, but I also have a terminal illness. I should be able to play Overwatch for more than 3 hours.
Parents need to beat their kids more.
I wouldn't say that, but I mean, the guy does make a good point here. It is very hard to flag adult communities, and especially when your adult community is centered around fucking kids.
Did you mean that literally, considering this community?
Are you fucking kidding me? You people are still alive?
Unfortunately, I'm
Wait,
not.
is that Radix?
Yeah, that's me.
Oh, holy shit! Yeah, Radix, I brought you into the goddamn call here because Creepy
yeah,
Reading...
thanks, dude. How's
yeah,
it going, guys?
Yeah, no, Creepy...
Who's this guy?
Yeah, Creepy Reading here is like nearly 200,000 subs. He just picked up a guitar. Radix is the best brony or ex-brony guitar player I have ever met. And
Wait,
Cool.
is he that South American fellow?
yeah, he's the one who could literally...
Yeah,
I
the Brazilian,
remember.
the Brazilian asshole.
He-
Yeah.
and if
I
you
remember that
insult him,
program.
he will teach you the
That was ages
jiu-jitsu
ago.
and soccer kick the fuck out of you.
No, yo, no more soccer. Remember Germany 2014?
Oh.
Not a thing anymore.
Yeah, I know.
You're gonna have a lot of editing ahead of you.
I don't care.
Oh boy.
Well, all we got to do is get to that one part. I'm going to leave in the part with Radix because
Oh,
he's
what?
a fucking joy to be around. I was expecting him
What?
to just pop in and leave, and I was like, I'm glad he got to say hi.
Oh no, it's because I didn't even have like a Skype running whenever you brought me here. But yeah.
But yeah, if you ever need any guitar advice, Creepy, this is the man to speak to. And, you know, Creepy can give you a plug or something if you likes your work. He's huge in YouTube.
I guess I am.
Yes, he is.
But yeah, nice to meet you, man. I've been reading stuff about non-consensual child porn.
Oh, Lord.
Furries. We're
Furry child porn. Gotta make it a distinction.
we're not
Or
pro.
porn is what
We're
he-
not pro
I
at
meant to
all.
say.
This is, yeah. We're making a video trying to...
so
You ever heard Dog Patch Press? Is a long story.
okay, I will not question that. I mean, it's fucking
You
legal
want
after all.
you want to sit here for a second while I read this next line because I do want to kill myself.
Go for it. I'll just be here.
The link is in
Go
the...
for
All right,
it.
get it. Question. That's really fascinating. So not only is there policing aspect to the leadership of the community, but also there's some sort of self-policing aspect too, wherein members of the community are on lookout for abuses to us as well. Absolutely. Certain people like to poo-poo the idea of a safe space, but that's exactly what these are. Predators and minors are both basically threats to the safety of these communities and disrupt the whole vibe. But this is the leadership perspective. On the ground, things might look a little different. So what about the consumers of this content that I was discussing? The innocent ones who simply wish to consume it for, as our interviewee put, looking at cute content. As much as the reader may find this kind of content to be the absolute opposite of cute, I eventually came across someone who rather publicly proclaimed on an After Dark account that they were into cub porn and age play. But before I show you the interview, I need to mention I went into this interview wary the entire time I was writing this article in my head. I could find nothing but negatives about cub porn in general. Age play as a kink was totally fine. Anthony, you want to tell me what age play is?
It's
No, I want to hear
can
from
explain
Anthony.
it.
All
No,
right.
I want to hear from Anthony.
Basically.
Anthony, come on, buddy.
All right, sure. Someone basically doing age play is someone pretending to be someone of a younger age.
All right, cool.
Also, or of
Jesus
an older age.
fucking Christ.
Sorry, I'm bullying
Yes,
Anthony.
yeah,
You know
it's
why? You know why I called upon you, buddy.
I got a really quick
This-
cheap out. When you're
This
as
is
old as me,
beautiful.
any age is better. Usually. Anyways, moving on.
But yeah, it looks like it's just pretending to be like a younger age. So that's just a kink.
Isn't
but
that like every woman who's over 30? Boom.
oh my god.
Prove me wrong.
thanks. Oh, dude, thanks, Dad.
You can't change my mind.
Indeed.
But cub porn, I simply couldn't see the positives. I just didn't understand why. I had been objective about all other kink expressions prior to this point, but for some reason, I simply couldn't be objective about this one in particular. I had an opinion about that. No matter how hard I tried to shape my head, I could not be objective. I had nothing but negative things to say. This contrasts greatly from what I eventually wrote down for all so far, of course. With that in mind, I actually wanted to seek out someone who was into it in some way or another, just to understand Why would someone enjoy something that's particularly related to such an abusive dynamic? And again, before I show you this interview, you'll notice pretty much everyone here is anonymous to protect them, which is a fucking problem in this article. This isn't to shield people from illegal activity, rather it's to shield victims and potential victims. This sort of topic has resulted in so much hateful vitriol that I simply don't want these people who've come forward and trusted me with their stories to receive harassment for coming forward. So with that, this interviewee likes cub porn. I asked him why. Question: what draws you into cub art in general? Is it the taboo nature of it all, or the potential for inversion of an abusive dynamic into something affectionate and consensual? Or is it something else entirely? Answer: I'd like to say it's a combination of the potential for inversion of an abusive dynamic into something affectionate and consensual, and the general childlike innocence of furry children. Okay, that's an answer. Question: yeah, understandable. Wait a minute, is that the thing that changes your mind? I like how innocent they are.
Yeah. It's like the first answer. It's like the first step to this guy's rethinking of cub porn.
Radix, you're about to say
I
something?
heard that, I
Dude,
would have
okay, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
I know you're reading an article, but I'm reluctant, and I'm actually afraid to even ask you. I'm afraid of the answer, but is this an actual article that someone actually bothered going after furries and asking them this kind of shit, or is this just like some kind of fucking fanfic bullshit?
No, this is
real article.
All right, Radix. One, we're recording, so no, that's fine. You're cool to be here. Just letting you know. The article used to be on a furry website put out by a guy named Dog Patch Press. A bunch of people said, "Hey, did you read this?" And he doubled down, and basically, he winded up firing a bunch of people and blocking a bunch of people who were pro him. He ripped the article down and tried to act like there wasn't a problem. So we're going through it now. It was 18 pages long, and originally we had trouble finding the fucked up part because the article is so goddamn massive, and it's kind of boring.
It was very dense with very opinionated, circumstantial stuff about like rape and all that fun topics.
But it's a lot of the stuff. It just sort of drags on. But when you get to this really fucked up part, we all started to wake up a little bit.
It's like every paragraph is, as the Tumblr community would say, problematic in some way.
Yeah, it was. There were a lot of them that were just. I'll admit it. I was bored. I was
like the further I go down this line, the more upset I'm getting.
As a furry,
You like the children. You like the.
I find this,
as they put it here,
fucking hilarious.
Innocence of furry children.
As a furry, I find this shit fucking hilarious.
well, Radix, you used to have a brony song, if I remember correctly, about teaching the world to clop.
With the CMCs and their eyes shining and shit like that. Yes, I still have that song.
But still. But
I still have
the link
that
to the archived fucking thing before they yanked it down.
Oh, thank you. Oh my fucking god.
Because if you look through like the first couple of paragraphs, you're like, oh, this is boring. But once you hit the really fucked up part, I'm like, oh yeah, no, I see the drama now.
Oh my fucking the perpetuating and normalizing child sexual abuse via media. What the fuck? Okay, I'm just gonna mute myself. You go on. Oh fuck.
Yeah, it's fucked up. So I recovered it. Creepy.
I'm upset, dude. I'm just recovering from. So like just this, like the dude's like, yeah, I think it is kind of like the whole consensual thing, but really it's the childlike innocence, and it's like,
date a cinnamon roll. Date somebody.
I mean, I'd put this guy. I'd probably put this guy on a watch list. Like shit. I
want an innocent. Fine, date a virgin.
Like
date a virgin.
Yeah, that's
question. And then like what's the fucked up thing,
dude?
Like earlier in the article, the guy's like, I was very against this. I had very strong opinions before I came into the interview. And then like if you read the next question literally starts out with, yeah, understandable.
Right?
What's understandable about
But
that?
just don't forget that virgin does not mean innocent. It might mean an experience, but definitely doesn't mean innocent.
It's in the ballpark. I mean, you know.
I'm just all I know is that like it's like this dude's like, yeah, I had strong opinions, and then he like goes to the next question like, yeah, I understand that. I might be a pedophile too.
Shit. I should go look up some cub porn.
I'm not editing any of that out. Fucking.
No, you can't. You don't need to edit any of that.
I could. I totally could go through this second by second. All I'm going to do is I'm going to probably cut out the really boring part at the beginning, slap the fucking interesting shit, and then put the boring shit at the end. If anybody just really wants to hear how we got going, and I'll probably put a disclaimer at the start.
All I know is that I'm like. There's nothing about that joke that needs to be like changed. Like I'm just, this is just like, oh man, you know, like I had strong opinions about it. So like, what makes you interested in this? Is it like, you know, how like abuse turns into consent and affection and all that stuff? And he's like, yeah, it's kind of like that, but it's mostly to child innocence. And then the next part is just, yeah, that's understandable. I get that. What? I could do this too.
Shit, man.
You know,
by the way, I'm not even fucking around. He's like, yeah, understandable. There's something wholesomely appealing about this sort of. Weren't you against this before you went into this interview?
I have to wonder how many hours he spent wasting on this.
I mean, other than this shit that you guys are reading, like, I don't know if this has any relation, but recently there was this other guy also from the furry community, apparently.
Oh.
You probably heard of it, maybe. Kiro?
Yeah. We talked about him earlier, actually.
Man.
Fuck.
My man, go look through Anthony's videos and go see.
Yeah, he's been covered pretty extensively.
All right.
Kiro was part of quite a hatchery of zoophilia.
All right. So you guys ready to finish this cancer?
I am.
All right, because I'm. Ooh.
I feel like
After we finish this, I'm going to put my cat to bed because it's far past his bedtime.
Okay. Yeah, understandable. There's something wholesomely appealing about that sort of innocence. I'm assuming, too, that you probably roleplay these scenarios, too, correct? And I know from experience, every age player has their range. That is, there is an age range in which they will play, in which going any lower than the limit is just not permitted, period. This can frankly go all over the place, from refusing to go any younger than a mid-teen to even permitting toddlers and infancy. Do you have any particular opinions about specific age ranges? Or do you feel that there's a certain age you refuse to play as a child in a dynamic? Answer. I do indeed roleplay some of these scenarios. My general age range is from 6 to 9. But that can go higher or lower. I personally prefer not to go higher than 22 or so, or lower than 4. But I'm open-minded to most age ranges. Open-minded. Oh my god. You know what? I'm starting to think that unless if you just like the word you need to like skim, right? So like I could understand the guy reading the beginning part and then be like, okay, yeah, this is good. But then like the fact like either one, he didn't skim anything else.
Well, it sounded very dry and, sterile.
There's a lot of problematic shit in this, dude.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of stuff. Like we've read like at least a page worth of problematic shit. So
how long has this call been going? Good God.
I don't know. I'll let you know when I got in.
I've been in here for an hour and a half.
2 hours, I think.
Was Creepy here when you started?
I think I was the first one here, and then Creepy came later.
Yeah.
So yeah, 2 hours.
It says an hour and 56 minutes for me, but I don't think.
This one's definitely going to get demonetized.
No. This is fucking advertiser friendly. Don't fucking worry about it.
Right. We're spreading awareness, right?
Are you telling me Huggins diapers wouldn't want to promote on this shit?
Stop. Stop. Please.
Look, this is their demographic, dude. Fucking age players.
Jesus.
I'm a big kid now.
Oh god.
I feel like
down,
that.
Surgeon.
Dude, you just fucking
Sir.
reminded me. You just fucking reminded me of that one fucking what rainforest, the like people walking around with a fucking diaper.
Yeah.
I wish I
Okay.
didn't.
Question. So that comment actually brings up an interesting question. I've never heard of age play being used in the context of playing of age individuals, even though it completely makes sense. May I ask, how old are you? I am 25 in real life, soon to be 26. I reserve my older self for playing certain scenarios where an adult is necessary. Question. As do I? What? I'm just... this
My
person's
N-word.
okay, so the writer here...
The writer outs
It's an
himself
age
as an
play.
age player. Okay.
So the writer's an age player, and he's just taking that next step to pedophilia. Right? Is that what I'm getting?
Huzzah!
Like he's like, I had very strong opinions about cub play. Understandable. I mean, I understand why you would want to fuck some child innocence here.
Oh, Jesus.
Like, understandable. What the fuck
Look
am
at
I?
the innocence in their eyes.
I like looking at the innocence in their eyes and then filling their ass full of cum. I mean, like, what do you expect? Like,
The elf doesn't like that.
No.
oh, no, I don't like that either. This
Not
is
safe
just
for elf.
that's the point, though. That's the point, though. This is fucked up. At first I was like, why are people getting upset about this? I can see this person's no.
No.
Yeah,
No, I got to admit, opinions have changed throughout this. It's gotten wrong and bad. And,
it's gotten real bad.
You know what's
Anyway.
sad?
What?
You guys thought it would be a great idea to just read this and, it would just be fine and you wouldn't be surprised, but you're obviously shocked. You're obviously
Radix,
surprised. And
There's a
we're caught off
podcast
guard.
format I usually call for this. I would have called this Bad Idea Podcast 11. And
Yeah.
Nope, it would have lived up to it eventually. I actually think I would have got bored first.
Sad thing is that I'm hearing all of these things that I'm reading this. I'm listening to you as well, like reading this thing, listening to your reactions, and I'm just like, why are they even surprised?
I mean, it is the first. It's not that I'm surprised.
Because the beginning is so slow. That's why. Because it caught me off guard.
Oh,
The goddamn
Okay,
thing.
so I'm not looking at this from a furry perspective, Radix, because I expect this from the furry community. The writer themselves presented themselves in a very intelligent manner in the beginning, right? Like they were very forward. They're like, hey, I talked to rape victims. This is how these role plays can be used in a healthy context, all that stuff. I talked to the psychiatrist and the psychiatrist said this, and it's like very informative and all that. And then we just skipped ahead and it's like, oh, I'm into age play.
fucking hell.
I'm gonna have
And
to
fucking
reread
kids,
that part.
at first I was like, no. But now, I mean, now that you said it's about fucking childhood innocence, I mean, like, yeah, fuck it. Fill them up, buddy. Like, there's just such a disconnect. It's almost like two different writers wrote this, or this dude had an agenda and then got bored halfway through.
Army has personality disorder.
Probably. Fuck. I mean, it's just so shocking, like you wouldn't like, you read the beginning of this and it's like, wow, that looks like something that could be like on The Guardian or something like that, right? But then you go down and it's like, oh no, what have you done?
It's more something from Salon.
Dude, actually, recently here in Brazil, we had once again one of those really weird media was trying to make kind of a story as well, like talk about the furry community as as a new thing, as a thing that is like getting popular among young people. And so they decided to make an article and post it on the internet. The fucking cover art for the freaking article was just basically furry porn.
Can I ask you a question?
It was cropped out furry porn.
Can I ask you a question, Rad?
Go for it.
Is your persona a shark with hair?
That's a circle. It's a made up thing. Like someone came up with the creature.
I meant to ask you about that, Radix. I was like, you went off the reservation with that one.
No. That was just something like that was fan art I received, and I basically just adapted that as a brand for my channel and for my identity.
My brand is a undead mummy. If people want to fuck me, they have to join necrophilia, I guess.
Yeah.
My brand is I'm the orange.
It's true.
My brand is a Death Note reference.
It's true.
I mean, I literally am a Death Note reference. I mean, if you've seen...
By the way, Radix, Sheldon says...
Yeah.
Sheldon isn't allowed in here.
Yeah, I know. He said
Sheldon!
He did appreciate your music.
I've been getting a lot of fan art lately, actually. So, but yeah, back to killing myself.
Okay.
As do I. I play the two side by side as a parent/daughter combo. So, would you say your childhood was positive or negative? Age regression is an incredibly useful tool in psychology, and I was wondering if it was here for you too. I'd say my childhood was fairly positive, with some splashes of negativity here and there, as for the case for many people. I like to use the age regression to relive the days of youthful innocence and occasional youthful naughtiness.
Oh no.
Question. Yeah, I assumed as much. I didn't want to be too leading, though, so I want to talk about the darker aspect of cub art with you, not necessarily in the rare non-consensual stuff that does come out, but rather in its usage. I'm not being accusatory here, and I cast no judgment if you're unaware of this, as you seem to prefer a much more positive perspective to the kink. But how do you feel about the potential of cub porn being used to groom potential child sex abuse victims? I'll be honest with this one. I honestly believe the potential is there, especially with certain pieces and images, and especially for images for pieces. And okay, this guy's writing is terrible. Especially with certain pieces and images for pieces and images to be used in this manner. I do find it
abominable.
I find it abominably disgusting and offensive to the artist of the drawings. But I've never seen or heard any examples of this happening. The interview actually kept going, but it fell apart, not because I got angry, not because of some flying emotions going back and forth between the interviewee, but the last comment caused a light bulb to go off in my head. I have not seen or heard any examples of this happening. Where did I first hear about cub porn? It led me to a site before Fur Affinity, which was even a twinkle. It led me to a site before Fur Affinity was even a twinkle in insert usernames here. It led me back to my early days in the fandom when I was young and fresh and had quite literally just attended my first furry conference, the final conference.
Stop.
Oh God, the conference, which the Jimmy Kimmel Show decided to crash since, well, I'm not sure we were right down. Since I'm sure we were right down the street from the studios in Burbank. This question and response made me realize, oh my God, I heard about cub porn in my years before I was 18. This led me back to sexual encounters I had when I was underage, when I was desperately trying to seek out some sort of confirmation I wasn't just some ugly kid, that I was deserving of intimacy and isolation I experienced from my peers, which is something I could have grew out of, despite the fact that I was 2 years prior, I'd finally gotten out of my 8 years of social abuse from my peers at school, but still just couldn't connect with others for intimate purposes. For the sake of not allowing potential low-key predators to take advantage of these mindsets, I'll not go into more detail about what led to my abuse. That's when I met someone who, in private, messages me after the conference and told me that a man would eventually be an accomplice to a very vivid abuse event in my life, which was was simply not interested in young girls like I was at the time. But that won't stop me, I told her over chat. At the time, these words sounded like inviting and freeing. Like someone finally saw me and wanted to be intimate with me. Now those words are forever scarred in my mind. Remember what I said earlier? In fact, these were merely abusers that have been proven to demonstrate some sort of abusive behavior. I want you to understand something about this. If you don't have evidence, you cannot just arbitrarily call someone out based on some sort of hearsay. However, the nature of these situations is that every so often an abuser knows how to hide their trail of evidence, and the result is victim blaming from the community, where there is no evidence to prove their case. This is just how abusers win. This is why victims like myself rarely come out about their abuse. In fact, this lack of evidence on my part, okay, so this is just this guy talking about their own abuse, talk about the word grooming.
I hate to be a dick and completing a cycle here, but is it possible that they started saying, wow, I've agreed with this guy an awful lot. How can I save my ass?
Yeah, kinda.
I mean, maybe I could be, I don't know, man. I don't have a DSM-5 handy.
Okay. So I'm going to just skip down.
Okay.
And skip the sob story here and go back to the interview, because the guy does go back to the interview.
Oh.
This is how the interview wound up ending. I want to note, while I mentioned I was kind of upset, I was actually hysterically crying in my office to the point where my head was throbbing and I had to take a full sedative for use of my anxiety attacks like this, where I normally only take half. Maybe you shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
Like, the guy didn't say anything controversial. He just said he hadn't heard of it, which, I mean, while improbable, isn't impossible. So the fact that this guy didn't hear something made you have an anxiety attack and start crying uncontrollably. Like, shit, dude. I'm sorry. You okay? Like, fuck. Maybe you shouldn't be doing this if it's going to cause this much stress and harm in your life, because this isn't helping anyone. Question. So the reason why I bring this up is because actually, the reason I bring this up is because it actually does happen as it relates to an actual child pornography. If you read a few paragraphs on page 108, which there is a link, where it links like some sort of like legal page. If you read a few paragraphs from page 108, it cites a study regarding this as early as 1990. It also demonstrates why actually artistic content could potentially be more potent for this sort of abuse than other such things. Having been groomed for this before and recalling details of my abuse, you may be too young to remember this site, but one of my abusers introduced me to the site called Redacted. I'm actually kind of upset that I recall that fact now, but it's not your fault. I knew that I was groomed, but I now know why I was having such a difficult time reasoning with it, because I was additionally groomed with the artwork. God, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to ruin your kink or anything. I'm just being honest here. I understand. I admit Redacted might be before my time as a furry, and I have never heard of that site until just now. While I'm not surprised that it's happened, I believe it's an unavoidable notion that an artist's work can be misappropriated in this manner. I'm sorry that happened to you, and I'm also sorry if this is bringing up bad memories of your past. I mean, as much as I hate to agree with this guy, I mean, like, he's at least acknowledging why it can be bad and why it can be used for a tool as something fucked up, you know? Like, I think there's something to be said there, but still like, fuck. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble processing this, so I'm just gonna keep going. Question: it's not so bad. I've gotten enough therapy to be over it. It's not that big of a deal, says the person who is taking pills and crying hysterically. And yeah, ultimately, it is unavoidable, even with. Even with as it's related to the darkness, even with as relegated to the darkness as child pornography is, dedicated abusers will hunt down and weaponize it. So I'm very torn on what to do, because on one hand, it's a really useful kink device, providing a sense of reliving youth and whatnot, even through projection of artwork. And yet, on the other hand, it could be used as a grooming device. So I'm very torn on what to do about it. I understand that it is a rough choice on how to handle this type of artwork. However, I believe if you are viewing and or enjoying it on your own terms by yourself with consenting friends or partners, then nothing bad could come from it. Question. Sure, I agree. That's not a question.
Yeah, that's...
But that's what it says. Question. Sure.
I think the question is just basically the interviewer popping in. But yeah.
Every other time it has been a question, and there's a big giant Q next to it.
Okay. Has there ever been anything else for the bold?
And I believe this is implied, but these friends I mentioned are adults of age. If that friend is underage, then there's a problem. And then that looks like the end of the interview, it looks like.
Yeah.
But, like, I mean, at least that guy seems to understand that, like, talking to children isn't necessarily something he should be doing when he's into this type of thing.
Yeah.
But then again, like, he seems to also be interested in, like, presenting himself as a child. Like, he seems to, at least from what he said, like the child adult dynamic with him as a child. So I guess it's like age play almost, except
it is age play, yeah.
And less pedophilia. It's still kind of fucked up.
It is age play because, like, again, like, it's the role play thing, remember? So just like in role play, people assume roles. The same thing goes for this kind of shit. So he could either just, like, enjoy imagining himself in a situation where he is the young one.
I kind of find it funny though how the artist is like, yeah, I started crying hysterically and taking pills. The writer is like, I was crying hysterically and taking like fucking stress pills and all that shit. Even though earlier she's like, yeah, even earlier even earlier in this she's like, yeah, I understand that. I'm into age play too.
Well, have you ever said you understand and you don't?
Right.
Yeah, but, like, she went into detail about how she understands.
Again, now it's 1 o'clock, so we've been doing this for fucking ever.
Yeah.
God.
It's fucking 4 a.m. here.
Enjoy, and I hope you're enjoying Brazil then.
Oh, yeah.
What?
Okay, so
enjoying Brazil? That's not a thing you can do.
Should I call that a wrap and stop the recording?
Let's go to the conclusion segment and let's, like, skim that a bit.
Okay, sure.
We've ultimately broke down what makes kinks appealing, from positives of victimization rewriting the mind to be strange gray areas that make abusive control dynamics. Wow, that is a long sentence. That was all one sentence. Holy fuck. Get an editor, dude. Yeah. We also broke down what can be done with regards to detecting potential abuses in either yourself or within your partner, namely in how blah blah. We believe that, and believe me, while I didn't reach out to any zoophiles in this article in particular, I have spoken with zoophiles who, for example, have horse ranches, and they told me how explicitly sexual their animals can be. Nonetheless, because animals cannot communicate with us verbally, and I know how much some zoophiles will get upset with this comment, they cannot consent. And if they cannot consent, like children technically can't due to their lack of education on the matter, during the doing so is okay. So that makes sense. So still, it's like you did say that one thing earlier where you're like, children can consent with each other. One may potentially be able to argue that maybe bestiality content, like writing an artwork, has the same kind of negativity associated with it as cub art. But either way, garden approaches, blah, blah. All right, yeah, there's nothing here. I think that's... I like how this person has like sources, but they're all like furry websites.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah, sure.
Like Wikifur.
He found something. One of these was like some
Fucking
feminist thing.
E621.
Alright, so I could hit stop.
Yeah, please.
Oh god. Fuck my life. Oh, now it's not going to show the fucking screen images. Fantastic.
Sorry, I was looking at a picture of it appears to be like Leo is smacking Step. Like
oh yeah, that.
Yeah.
Basically there's this guy, this really intellectual individual named Stalin.
Oh
right.
Lord.
And he's drawing this picture of a lot of people from this Discord server called Top of the Barrel. And it's a running joke that Leo kicks me for the littlest things, and it's funny. We just can confirm. And the joke is that since my OC is a Paris Sprite, we shows Leo hitting me with a fly swatter. Oh, there is a copy pasta. Yes.
That creepy reading. Yay.
Hey, creepy.
Something about creepy pastas. I'm here.
Listen up. Y'all don't understand. This land that you stand on, that you think is a oh, you're not recording.
I mean, I kind of am.
Oh.
And I'm not taking it down, creepy. So if you say something really dumb and retarded...
yes.
Wait, we're streaming?
No, I'm recording.
Oh.
I was going to read the Dog Patch Press thing, but fuck it, if Creepy's here, I guess not.
Listen up.
What's Dog Patch Press again?
Alright, fine. Dog Patch Press is this obnoxious, furry, fucking weirdo liberal that... Basically, if you're from the left, you can literally do no wrong up to and including pedophilia. Not like... And let me be clear, I don't mean you said something incorrect that should get you arrested. I mean, you have a record as a sex offender, but you're left.
Yes.
This coming from a Democrat.
I think rape is wrong, but like, I still do it.
Don't say but. Don't say but.
Oh my
For
god.
the record, Creepy the Reading was totally being ironic, and I did tell him I'm recording right now. So
Yeah, I mean, if you can't really tell that I was making a goof, then I mean, you got something fucked in the head.
No, I just wanted to be completely clear that I wasn't playing
Anthony.
gotcha with Creepy.
Aren't you a Democrat?
Me?
No, not you.
I don't identify with anything because I think both of them are kind of being retarded right now.
Let's talk to Anthony.
Me?
Aren't you a Democrat?
I voted fucking, if I remember the count, there were 5 Republicans, 4 independents, and 3 demos. I didn't vote the party line. I picked a cross variously.
Okay.
But in the last major election, I went demo. So it was really a mixed bag.
There we go.
Well, it's hard to pick between a rock and a hard place.
There'd be no reason to be an atheist. Oh,
Said the centrist guy.
The centrist.
I missed a good opportunity for a joke. It's hard to pick between a wall and a hard place.
it's not to laugh too hard, but this is just too good.
That's just not accurate. That's one of my favorite
It's
Hillary
true.
Clinton.
Why do you guys
guys.
get weirdly political? I'm just trying to play some night into what.
I was just trying to read a fucking copy pasta.
Ba da da ba da da ba da 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 da.
And
Listen up. Y'all don't understand.
It, son of a bitch. Fucking hell. At least it wasn't porn.
See your email, missed calls, newsfeed, and more from Outlook. Fuck you.
It's the most boring porn in the world. He literally gets off the spam,
The
ladies and
world's most
gentlemen.
boringest shit in the world.
Listen up. Y'all don't understand. This land that you stand on, that you think is America, This is actually Africa, the dear Mississippi that you love.
All right.
that you know of.
So, anyways,
All right, let's get off Mbabe.
So here's the whole damn thing. It's,
Oh Lord, is that the article from?
that is the most.
Oh
delicious,
my God.
wonderful
The what?
article of article.
Sometimes I pray for the furry community.
Hold on a second. Let me get this straight. So this kink deep state goes so deep that we have a periodic table.
There's a periodic table.
There's a periodic table for kinks.
Extremely deep.
There is a periodic table for
I
kinks.
want to die.
I want to die too.
There we
Can we
go.
create a suicide
Don't
pact?
we all?
Also,
Well, I
think
mean,
we
it's
are-
Rule 34. You know, you can make an infinite amount of kinks because, like, you could turn anything into a kink. I mean,
Why is this even an article?
Next, you're gonna tell me people think wiping your ass is a fucking kink. I hate this.
it can
I mean,
be.
it can
It probably is. It is.
Eating
But
buttered toast is a kink for some people. Shit, dude, anything can be a kink.
Okay, I'll be honest. Butter toast is great.
Getting inflated is a goddamn kink.
I
Ugh.
never understood.
Like a balloon.
I know.
Not like fat, but like with helium.
I know.
Okay, so I'm ready to read it off here. So, the complexities of problematic kinks. Guest post by Maybelle Redmond by Patch O'Fur. I think he's sponsored it. I don't know. This extra
Wait, Patch O'Fur?
I put the link in the damn chat here. This extra long article, and holy fuck is it fuck my voice by the end of the time I'm done with this. This extra long article is published whole instead of by part to preserve context. Quoted people were animized to protect sensitive personal info. Their ID was provided privately so I could verify it. Thanks to Mabel for submitting this patch, which I will assume is Dog Patch Press. Ahem. Maybelle Redmond's context warning and disclaimer about the complexities of problematic kinks. I remember Sheldon having a meltdown when he read this off. And by the way, I did mention to him, I was like, when I put this out, if I just do a cold reading without reactions, I want you to do a react to it or one of his videos. But with enough jag-offs on the call, we should be able to crack this out ourselves. Before we begin to touch on these things, we must first and foremost consider the victims and ardent defenders of victims who have been susceptible to abuse that problematic kinks tend to surround or be the border of. There's a lot of Tumblr in this. If you are a victim of, are close to a victim of, or feel passionately for victims of abuse, you are the people being considered up front. Okay, while we discuss some details of some problematic kinks.
Yo, Anthony, you're reading like a retard. Mind if I just do this?
Sure, take it away.
Oh damn.
All right, I'm just gonna reread everything because that's gobbledygook.
Top 10 anime betrayals.
Sure.
Okay, so this is Complexities of Problematic Kinks, guest post by Maybelle Redmond. Wow. I can make my voice do this. Maybelle Redmond's content warning and disclaimer about the complexities of problematic kinks. I don't like that word problematic. It sounds like something a mom would say. Before we even begin to touch on these things, we must first and foremost consider the victims and ardent defenders of victims who have been susceptible to abuse that problematic kinks tend to surround or be on the border of. If you are the victim of, or if you are the victim of, are close to a victim of, or feel passionately for the victims of abuse, you are the people being considered up front. While we will discuss some details of some problematic kinks, you are being warned in advance with the opportunity to skip or avoid the provided details, and you're perfectly justified to close this article and not consume what you may feel to be a potential excuse for abuse. Man, I mean, not educating yourself about warning signs seems like a bad idea. Like, you know, there's trigger warnings, and like the thing that I kind of want to like put up here is that like there's something like trigger warnings in entertainment, and then what this person is trying to do is provide help for people who are being abused, but you're also telling the people who need this kind of warning according to you to click off the warning so that they are uninformed. Like, don't you think that's like, you know, bad. It's valid to ignore the details of why others consume and perform problematic kinks for the sake of your own psychological safety. Or if you, wow, that's a real Lovecraft shit right there.
Wow.
I was on DeviantArt and found inflation, and now I scroll shit all over the walls.
What the hell? What?
What the hell?
I'm not questioning it.
Or if you feel that it could legitimize. Sorry, I got legitimize them. Don't engage in something you don't engage in something you feel uncomfortable with. It's not fair. It can be difficult to avoid abusive triggers within the community you enjoy. Damn. I mean, like, if you get triggered, all you need to do is just like, it's like the internet. You just block it, or like, don't follow people who post that kind of thing.
Or close your eyes and walk away from the computer.
Yeah, your needs need to come first in this discussion. One of these needs may be to shield yourself. If you wish to do that, please close the article now. All right, let's do it. While attempting to Google exactly what is considered a problematic kink, because of course the internet has all the answers, a lot of the definitions appear to be based on open-ended discourse. Nonetheless, a very common theme arises. A problematic kink can be defined as a kink derived from some kind of abuse or potential abusive situation. While feminist detractors may tell you that the concept of a problematic kink simply means every kink is problematic, that's absolutely not how it's being used in common discourse. Multiple discussions regarding problematic kinks revolve around abuse and potential abuse situations, particularly with these specific themes: bestiality, incest, pedophilia, and rape. There are many more potentially abusive and problematic kink scenarios, such as authoritarian coercion and human trafficking. But this brief list tends to be the hot button issues when it comes to problematic kinks. For no good reason. I made a meme, fuckers.
Hold on.
For good reason, these tend to be abusive issues that enter people's lives the most frequently. Furries can have... Sorry, I got something in my throat. Furries have the tendency to come from some kind of coercive environment. Some were bullied in school, like everyone. Some had parental abuse, neglect, or zero parental support in their lives. Yeah, I mean, that seems to be fair and describe most people. Some were just so socially awkward they had no choice but to evolve online due to rejection felt by society. I mean, Christian, right? Right, gamers?
God damn it.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I kind of agree with some of the stuff being said here. Like, but the thing is that I feel like what this person is describing is feelings like that are felt by most people in life. Like, I'm not even trying to knock this dude or anything. I'm just here to fucking read shit. But I'm just kind of reading this, and I'm just kind of thinking to myself, this is something that pretty much everyone had to deal with, because I have a kind of a theory that everyone's been bullied at school at one point or another, some to a bigger extent than others, so it's pointless to have like a pity me contest because it's just not going to get anywhere. Nonetheless, regards of why we came here, we have the freedom to explore fantasies and minds in an amazingly constructive way that most humans never get to experience. But of course, because of these problematic fantasies aren't always just fantasies, and the ambiguity can only be clearly seen in hindsight as crossing a line. We do need a means of protecting the victims of said abusive scenarios, for the sake of making sense of protection often sought as a part of this fandom. So if I'm like reading this right, it seems that this person's like, some things you can't stop fantasies. So anything that's a problematic fantasy just needs to be not fantasized about. because you always run the risk of crossing the line. And if you cross the line, then with these types of things, it's too late, I guess, or you can't stop it, or, because some people aren't able to have self-control, we should stop all people. Like, I don't really know what the argument is yet, so I'll just keep reading. That's because abusers exist here too, and abusers consume problematic kinks as well. We've seen high-profile abusers over and over again, from gray muzzle memory of William Shaw, aka Dive Fox, being publicly condemned for his child chasing and grooming patterns on Judge Matthias, to Frank Jembeck on Judge Matthias, to Frank Jembeck's arrest and conviction over extreme child pornography. And as recent as the revelations that Adam Wan, aka Zush, is willing to accept razor-thin legality of using a legally evasive photography of sexualized children as reference material. This is nowhere near an exhaustive list of abusers in the community. In fact, these are merely the abusers that have been proven to demonstrate some sort of abusive behavior. More lurk in the community because they are extremely effective at silencing their victims, one of which we'll be naming later on. To reassure the reader, their abuse neither will be excused nor glorified in this article. Thus, we will first discuss the positives of problematic.
You cut out.
No, I didn't. I just kind of realized what I'm saying. Like,
there we go.
Like, positive. Like the phrase "problematic," right, implies that it's bad, and when you add the word positives to it, it makes it seem like.
I think they're talking out both sides of their ass.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, I wouldn't call it problematic if there are positives to it, Like, I'd find a new word that more accurately describes it.
Well, I thought the whole idea of
Complicated?
problematic was a limp-wristed way of saying that something's bad.
Like, I don't know. I'm trying, like, just so you know, FNGR, I'm trying to give this person, like, the benefit of the doubt.
No.
Like,
Okay. Creepy, hypothetically, if I were to think of you as like a Tumblrina, I imagine when, like, say, Leo goes after pedophiles and some of his more boorish, quotation marks, behavior, I could see you going up to somebody else and going, his problematic way of handling things, meaning that it has some merit, but it's not something you would probably, the way you would... You know how when someone says, I concur, I agree with you, but I don't like how you got to that conclusion? That's what I think when someone says problematic.
But when I think problematic, I think that it's like more of just like a general, like, I wouldn't call what Leo Convoy does problematic. I would think that he goes about it the wrong way. Because, well, yes, like, he does sometimes get the job done. I do feel like if he did it in a different way, it would, like, yield a result that is desirable, right? But when like, if I were to say the positives of Leo Convoy's problematic behavior, it's like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting a little too picky over wordplay. It's a really weirdly structured.
Okay.
Anyway, I'll continue. Does first discuss the positives of problematic kinks, from how they relate to healing abuse victims, to how they relate to sexuality with abuse aspects abstracted, outright removed, or controlled, to separate the positive aspects from potentially abusive or murky situations, which could also be positive. There will be a discussion of the gray areas in problematic kinks, discussing how they can sometimes be a therapeutic tool, a justification of one's abusive tendencies, or a means of reinforcing one's victimization. Then finally, we'll discuss the negatives of problematic kinks, from how they enable abusers, justify their behavior, or how they use the content produced for their kinks as a means to potentially groom new victims. We will also discuss what can be done to protect victims, safe play of these problematic kinks, and the consumption of the content, while simultaneously attempting to discourage real-world abuse situations that these problematic kinks revolve around. First, though, we need some primer before we begin a clarification of terminology. Okay, so like I have nothing wrong with anything said there. Like that seems pretty cool. It seems like this is just like a post designed to like, you know, help people be online safely, I guess. But what bothers me most is that you're like, hey, if you're going to be triggered by this, then don't read it, because that's like saying, hey, you know, the don't talk to strangers info thing that they do at school. You don't have to read it if you were abused by a stranger. No, I think those are the people that should probably like read it first.
Well, if I could hear creepy, I think they're trying to play like the Boogie 0928, like ultra soft, gentle. Now, you don't have to take my advice if it's going to upset you. Like they're trying to take that middle ground kind of limp-wristed kind of thing going on there, I think.
I think it's, I mean, just on a moral level, I think it's kind of fucked up that you think this is information that needs to get out there, but you're going to encourage the people that need it the most to click off. I think that's kind of fucked up, in my opinion.
Well,
but hey, that's just my opinion.
Bracing because there's some people out there who read something and have a real bad negative reaction. I don't think that these people are able to give a good swift kick in the ass, but that seems, I mean, it kind of goes without saying if you look at the terminology.
All right, well, let's do this.
Good.
When I say kink, and you hear me say kink, there might be some crosstalk occurring, particularly with how kink is assumed to be expressed. Even though when I abstractly say kink, you may not be interpreting the word kink to actually mean some sort of pornography, namely animated or video content, artistic or photographic content, or written content. So from here on out in this article, when I say kink, I want to make it clear that I'm referring specifically to mental arousal which occurs and not the expression of said arousal, such as performing intimate acts with a partner related to said kink, or even creating erotic content that includes the arousal with this kink to share with others. When I wish to abstractly refer to the kink's expression, such as sexual acts and erotic content, I will use the word expression, or refer to this type of expression explicitly, such as literature or video content. Now, let's now begin to explain why problematic kinks are actually much more complex than their abusive triggering surface makes them appear, starting with the positives. Now, before I go into this more, what was your issue with this, out of curiosity, other than I know you said that you had issues with Dogpatch or something?
Okay, so here's the whole idea. This was up on Dogpatch Press's channel, or his not channel, but website.
Twitter page.
Yes. Somewhere along the lines that I haven't read through all of it because I just wound up downloading it. It's rather massive and huge, and a lot of people saw this and said this excuses people who like cub art. And I guess that's in there somewhere, and that's what we're aiming to see. Where I guess all the drama was. I guess with me droning on and reading it all monotone, most people would have been like, I don't see the problem. But no, when you've got a little bit more, oomph in your voice and a little bit more delivery, because these have a lot of big brain words.
Yeah, I just want, I mean,
if you don't want to do it,
without getting too into politics here, art is art, in my opinion, and I think that it's you probably shouldn't be consuming what amounts to drawn pedophilia, but if no one's getting hurt, stick to your own corner, and you better not hurt people, but I'm going to probably put you on a watch list somewhere.
No, I get that, and that's definitely fair too. I guess we could try, and if you don't want to go through all this, we could try and
No, we can. Let's get through this. I'm just trying to see what exactly we're necessarily
at this point in time. It again, my brain is shutting off a couple times here. I guess I could try and skim ahead to see where the main event, so to speak, is.
No. It's a good idea to have this whole thing read out so we understand the context. I was more or less just understanding what the context for the reading was.
Okay.
Which I'm fine with. I don't mind.
Well, yeah, basically, yeah.
This is actually kind of interesting.
From what I heard, this individual lost really close people to them. They doubled down. They yanked it off. Didn't even address it being ripped down or something along those lines. And I was like, oh, this seems like a good time to put out a video. People seem like they're. I have friends and fans tapping me on the shoulder. Hey, Anthony, FNGR, you've got to do this. Okay.
Okay, Anthony. Let's do this.
Sure.
Let me just put you back on my big screen. Okay. Positive aspects of problematic kinks, exploring as therapy for abuse and trauma. The following section will discuss rape and potentially traumatizing revelations of what rape victims may experience in the aftermath. We'll be interviewing a rape survivor who will be detailing potentially upsetting revelations about as to how they... We will also be interviewing a rape survivor who will be detailing potentially upsetting revelations as to how they cope with their trauma. I mentioned earlier in this article that some victims will use the exploration of problematic kink as a means of erasing or controlling said aspects of their victimization. As an ex-partner of mine was raped by fellow furries. Okay, I have a sick sense of humor. I probably shouldn't. Like I read the word furries, and
the
I'm just like
opinions
imagining
of the reader of creepy reading do not necessarily reflect the thoughts and opinions of the stellar and virtuous FNGR.
Listen, this isn't an opinion here. It's just a mental image conjured up by that. Like,
he's one of those weird Gretzko fans, people. Don't take me responsible for that.
I think that this would probably, like, if you were trying to get a message out, like, if you want me to turn this into a criticism, if you're trying to get a message out, because we're talking about broad topics that affect more than just furries and shit,
Yeah.
You could have just said, was raped. The fact that they are furries does not make them more inclined to rape, and the fact that they are furries doesn't really add much to this.
The funny thing is that bronies are so self-unaware that the fact that you're criticizing furries, that the bronies on my channel be like, yeah, dumb furries, like, it'll go right over their head.
Listen, bronies are just as furious.
I know, that was the thing I was just making there, yeah.
All right, an ex-partner of mine was raped by fellow furries. And like reading that is difficult. Thankfully, the abusers wound up serving jail time for what they did, which can't be said for most rape situations, sadly. It was a relatively high profile in the community, to the point that one of the abusers is, for the most part, still ostracized from social interactions nowadays, with the occasional defender who props him up as having learned, despite him being observed to continue these abusive behaviors. Well, I'm gonna just say right now, I'm kind of like, if this person was actually raped, I don't know the person who wrote this, and I don't know about the person they're talking about. But like, if the dude went to jail and shit for what they did, like it seems like how long ago was the dude, like, was the jail sentence, like, was it for rape or what was it for? Because like, if they were arrested for this and then also let out, like was it like 5 years? Was it a year? Like what was the actual sentencing? I guess the context here is kind of like, I don't necessarily think it's necessary to talk about the specifics of the rape situation. Like, we know the person is a rape survivor, and I think that's all that's necessarily needed to know. And then, like, I guess if people wanted to look into it, you could, like, I guess, like, provide links or something so that they could look into the person, as opposed to trying to re-explain what happened without actually going into detail about what happened. So I guess I'm just kind of left more confused here than anything. Yet in the time I've known this ex-partner, I've observed something interesting. They have a kink for non-consensual fantasies. They agreed to talk to me about why, because they're a relatively high visibility member of the furry community. They chose to speak on the condition of
anonymity.
Okay, this isn't like scientific at all. Like, I much rather like see like papers cited about how this kind of thing can help, because this is just kind of anecdotal, and it's cool.
I agree.
it's like, cool, this person's able to use it to help them, but like, I mean, does it really help them, or are they just saying that it's helping them? Like people like, there are people out there who think crystal healing works, but we all know how that works out.
I'm a crystal poet, though.
Thoughts and opinions of creepy reading do not reflect thoughts of opinions of the channel.
Excuse me, crystal healing objectively and factually
okay,
does not
I
work.
think you misunderstand.
Oh, you better be glad Sheldon's not here. He'd have a field day with you saying objectively.
I was making a joke.
I think you completely hijacked it. I don't have a problem laughing at crystal healing. That's not my point. And that's no offense to Aria, who's a crystal pony. But my whole point here is that you're talking...
You can't fucking heal people like Jesus.
Okay, I got it.
No, I'm just kidding around.
My point here, when I'm saying that, this person right here may have put a lot of work and effort into it, and you're like, this might as well be crystal healing. And I'm like, I'm over here, creepy readings over there, saying that, and I'm over here.
Okay. What I'm trying to say is I'm not trying to say this is.
You basically called him a 2-bit charlatan and a huckster, is what it sounded like.
Okay, I'm glad that you called that out, so I can clarify here, right? I don't think this individual is trying to do any harm. What I'm saying though is that an opinion backed without actual data cannot be taken at face value, because there are many reasons something may happen. There are people out there who believe in the things that they say and absolutely hold it to be true, but that could honestly be like dismissed as placebo. So while they did put a lot of effort into this, I'm glad that they did. What I'm trying to say is that without actual data behind it, this is just hearsay, and like it doesn't reinforce your point. It's circumstantial at best. And I mean, like I said, I do want this person to be able to present something and actually make a point that'd be worth doing. It's just, I just kind of wish that they went out of their way and maybe looked at some peer-reviewed papers or something. Or like, if there wasn't one, let's mention that, and let's get some people on it. Fuck. They agreed to talk with me about why, because they're a high visibility member. They wanted anonymity, blah, blah. This is also why I've not named their abusers in particular, regardless of prison convictions they have faced doing this. Okay, now I'm going to have a little bit of an issue. Why bring up the circumstances surrounding the rape if you're also not going to name the victim or talk about the abusers? All this information presented here is not needed and only can serve to like potentially identify the victim, which defeats the purpose of anonymity. I mean, shit, dude. I hate to be a dick, but you need to get your shit together, man. Question. So you survived a pretty upsetting rape scenario a few years ago. And I know in my personal interactions with you and seeing the way you describe your fantasies on social media, you likely have non-consensual fantasies. Do these fantasies help you deal with the trauma in any way? And if so, how? I've had an internal conversation. Okay, I'm just going to say answer so people know, like, what the fuck, like, because I don't know if this is going to be, like, on screen or if you're actually using this or whatever, blah.
Yeah,
answer.
I'm using the OBS to follow along.
Answer. I've had an internal conversation about that with myself for several years. Considering the irony of someone who had gone through all that suddenly turning around and finding sexual excitement in the concept, ultimately I can say it's a contributing factor. I get to make the scenario in mind, and I get to have control over it. If it ends if I want it to. It goes as far as I want, and it even trivializes what happened to me in my mind. It makes the scenario hurt less in the present. This is an important distinction. In the present, I'll never forget the pain I went through. I'll never forget the breakdowns I've had for years to come remembering it. But it no longer hurts me now like it did back then, and that's to my benefit. So, like, it sounds like this person likes having control. I keep saying like. I need to stop fucking doing that. It sounds like this person enjoys having control, but like, is it at all possible that the person just has a rape fetish and the control aspect is just like could the trauma be helped with just having control over a sexual situation, as opposed to, or like even just having control in life in general, as opposed to just, like the non-consensual part, and maybe the non-consensual part is just a pre-existing thing, or I don't know. I'm just without any data and without it being hearsay and without knowing the person that they're even talking about, there's little like I can even take from this as a reader, other than like what you can generally infer with common sense, And I suppose that's like probably just the biggest failure of this so far. Anyone?
Yeah, I don't even know. It's a lot to unpack.
It is. I'm trying to unpack it as I go, just so like people don't get the wrong idea, or like like let's say the person listens to me reading this, right? Like let's say this person actually sees this somehow. Like I'm just trying to give my advice here, because like this person seems to value like protecting others. But if you value protecting other people, then why would you give specific, detailed information about a high-profile community member who's been raped? Like when they want to be anonymous, like why not just say if this is a rape victim in the furry community and they wish to remain anonymous? Like why do I need to know that it was like multiple furries that raped them? Like, why do you need to clarify that they went to prison and it was high profile? Like, this is stuff that people can use to figure out who this individual is, and it defeats the purpose of the anonymity. And I feel like you're kind of doing a disservice to this person who has graciously like, offered to answer these questions, which in the end don't really help your point. So I don't know. I mean, that's just me. Maybe I'm wrong, and I'm fully willing to admit that. Question. It sounds like this means of sexual exploration has been useful to you in moving on from trauma. On moving on from the trauma of what you experienced. Am I reading that right? I believe so. Answer. I believe so. While it was never my intention, it was obvious to me upon reflection that it helps with a couple of different issues. Now, that's a little bit of a logical fallacy here. Like when you're trying to connect the dots retrospectively, as opposed to like you may not, that may not be necessarily what you were thinking at the time, and human memory is kind of a fucked up thing. Non-consensual fantasies arise from your need for control. I'm like, really? Are you sure? I thought that the whole point of the non-consensual aspect was so you didn't need to control it.
Well, I think it's more like that they want to have control of like the scenario itself, like almost like they're kind of taking.
Well, when I watch porn, I'd like to have fucking control of what I'm watching. Like, I don't watch porn, by the way, but if I did, you would think that that's just kind of a normal aspect of like sexuality and like role play in general.
I can explain what they mean by control when talking about the non-consensual.
They did say earlier that it's like just the control of knowing how to end it and start it and like what happens in it and stuff, which it's like cool. It's just I really wish that there was like, I'm not even saying that they're wrong. I just kind of wish there was like a more scientific background behind it. Cause like this is supposed to be like a very informative paper, but it reads like an opinion piece. And maybe it is supposed to be an opinion piece, but like if it is, then there's nothing to really be gained from it other than, well, that's your opinion. You'd think you'd want to reach for higher stars, To have
you were going to say something.
Oh, you were?
Elf?
Yes.
You were going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to explain a bit about, well, if anyone was willing to listen, explain a bit about the logic behind saying having control in non-con kinks.
Go on ahead.
Okay. So there's different sides of it. If you're being the quote-unquote victim, there's the control knowing that you can make it stop whenever you wish or have it keep going. And in the quote-unquote assailant's case, it's the control of knowing you're, in a way, making someone feel helpless and taking complete control over them, and that turns into excitement.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Because the way I read it before, when she said, "Oh, this is kind of me taking control of the situation," it's like, "Oh, even though I have this non-consensual fetish, I can make it stop whenever I want. Like no one is forcing this fantasy to continue. I have control."
My problem,
it's kind of it's like a way of her taking back control from like when it was when that control was taken away from her when she was raped. That's how I interpreted it.
I guess the real question here is that, does this actually help people? And is it, how do we know it's helping people? Like, how is this different from like how is this any different from other sexual experiences is the first question. Like, could you get the same result from consensual stuff, right? Or like a BDSM situation? Or
well, I'm going to assume that basically that someone's going to look at this and see how complicated and difficult or elaborate it is. It's like, oh, this person must clearly know what they're talking about. Look how much time and effort went into it. And I suppose,
the writing's on point.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Yeah, I'm saying it's within the realm of possibility that people will look at the size of this and see that, okay, a lot of time and effort. They definitely talk to victims, I would assume.
We don't know if they're a victim. That's the fucking problem. That the anonymity aspect and the non-disclosure of what happened, like, you know, we don't know if it's even being used in the right context. Like, I mean, it's because this is basically, like I said, an opinion piece. You know, there's nothing like, there's no like disclaimer at the top that says every person who we've interviewed has been a victim of rape. And I'm hearing myself.
Yeah, was there an echo?
Yeah, there's an echo. Whatever. It's just, I'm not trying to say that they weren't. I'm just trying to say, like, there's nothing like saying like people who abuse these people, like, this has been proven. Like, we went and talked to victims who have been a victim of this kind of federal crime. Like, we don't know. Like, was the person arrested for like groping, or was it like full on? Like, and because there is a distinction between all of that, and there is no distinction made in this, like, for all we know, that non-con could be a way of coping with full-on rape or just like, you know, sexual harassment. And that's the problem here, because like it's too detailed while also not being detailed enough without any actual like other evidence other than just, like I said, circumstantial, which I don't know why I'm having such a bad issue with it. It's just, I know what I'm reading doesn't, like, while it's interesting to hear, it's just, since we don't know anything, in the end, it almost kind of feels pointless. And I'm not trying to say that the victim's lying or anything. I'm trying to say that the writer could potentially exaggerate what was done or what's being done and shit because of this. And I'm not trying to say that, I'm not trying to victim blame. I'm trying to say that the writer could be pulling strings behind the scene to make their point look better, even though it might not be as good as they originally thought. And that's just my kind of opinion on it. I'm not saying that is the case. I'm just saying that when you don't have all your facts in line, that's what it looks like. All right. Where the fuck was I? To have to have one's urgency taken away, their control suspended, allows a person to escape their anxieties. It's a part of why submission is a huge kink. It's a huge part of why submission is a huge kink for people who are consistently busy, stressed, especially those who are involved in a lot of management and decision making. With role playing a rape victim, there's even this underlying feeling of being desired, that consent is no longer a factor. Then that's like, like kind of a subconscious, like if you're okay with someone having sex with you, then even though they didn't ask for consent, then it still is consensual.
Kyle, mute. You're doing background noise.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
On the opposite end of domination and role playing, the rapist is about having control and losing oneself to urges and working out the stress of one's lack of control. I mean, I guess, like, shit. I mean, that's certainly your opinion. You mentioned You mentioned role play right there specifically. Does that also extend to consuming other kinds of erotic content of the variety, such as visual or written pornography of these kinds? And do mediums additionally have the same sort of therapeutic effect, or do they tend to trigger your past experience? There is no trigger. I dealt with the trauma rather effectively, to where simulated versions of it, specifically in fictional media with the intent of drama, don't quite affect me on that level. My enjoyment and use of it as a coping mechanism as well as sexual fulfillment is most certainly extends to pornography of that nature in all different means of consumption. All right. Now, this is actually like one of the things that kind of proves my that kind of exemplifies my question here. This person says that he uses it as a coping mechanism as well as sexual fulfillment. Now, the question is the sexual fulfillment the coping mechanism, or is it how they get there what triggers the coping thing? Because, like, if you get sexually fulfilled, you get dopamine from the finishing, but, and dopamine is a therapeutic thing. So do we know that it's specifically the fantasy that's causing the coping, or if it's the sexual fulfillment itself? That's the question that I think should be answered before we even continue. Because an opinion on what helps and doesn't help, could just be like hindsight 2020,
Yeah. Also, I'm looking through this article and oh my god, this is long. Like, God.
Yeah.
Am I not like halfway through this?
Oh, you're not even a quarter way through.
Yeah, like
oh my God,
I was like,
I'm
that's why I said maybe we should just jump to the nitty and the gritty, which I don't.
Yeah, you should. It's a long ass article.
This is a very long article.
All right, let me just do some skimming here.
Yeah, here was my whole thing. When I took it and I just slapped it in a Word document and got rid of all the crap, it was 15 pages, and I was like, I am going to fucking die getting through this thing. And then you said, I'll do it. You fool.
I didn't realize it was that long. I figured I'm like halfway through it. Like,
oh
no.
God, I was about to say
the contract has been signed.
I've got a guy with nearly 200,000 subs. I was like, I'm surprised he didn't say so. I'm like, he didn't ask for money. Jesus, this is beautiful. But yeah, no, you should.
I figured I'll just take this out of the money I owe you.
Oh, ow.
Hey, you don't have to pay me money. I already owe you.
Oh,
Okay. So this is just this person talking about sexuality and how.
And disclaimer: we're not skipping ahead because we think any less of rape. It's a very huge, massive, giant document. And by God,
yeah, there's a point that needs to be made here. And I think I've thoroughly expressed my issues with the writing so far. I guess
maybe let's skim the gray areas of problem.
All right. Okay. So I want to focus on particular with this interview: rape survivor taking back control, rape, and then there's this stuff that. Okay. There's actually a quote here from a actual psychiatrist, according to the writer, but the psychiatrist is anonymous. I think that might be a good way just to bookend this segment.
Okay.
Because I've been complaining about them not talking to actual experts on the subject.
So
I have worked with a number of individuals who have participated in kink roleplay that others may have considered problematic, such as acting out rape fantasies or race play. What the
Race
fuck
play?
What the fuck is race play?
Okay.
I can explain that.
I can
You don't
explain
know.
that
Oh,
too if I
God.
need to. But anyways, my whole point is where are we? Because I skimmed ahead and I'm back here.
Right under that question and answer things, you mentioned role play there specifically. If you keep scrolling down, like
so
one, two,
we're under positive aspects of problematic kinks, right?
no.
Higher.
Oh yeah, we are. We
Okay.
are. We are positive aspects.
So question here is: it sounds like this means sexual exploration lower. Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
You mentioned roleplay. Here we go.
Go if you scroll. It's like 3 paragraphs under that.
Okay.
It's I have worked with a number of individuals.
Okay, got it.
Okay. So like I said, up there it says that this is the writer talking with their psychologist, who's like, you know, an expert on the subject, which I'm hoping they are. I don't know. Is this an accredited psychologist? I don't know. I can't say for certain. I mean, for all I know, this could be a con artist you're talking to, and you may be getting conned. That's the fucking problem. I don't know. I'm not going to dismiss what you have to say, but I'm taking it with a grain of salt because you're not providing like information here that is like that's like kind of needed for the background of what you're saying. So anyway, according to the writer, this is a psychologist. But before I continue, what the fuck's race play?
I'm assuming it's like, so if I'm gonna take a guess here. Like, I don't know, if you're dating a black girl and you want to, you're taking race into some kind of, I guess you're seen as something from segregation or slavery and you're trying to treat that like a kink.
God.
Am I guessing right?
Nope.
Oh, I don't know. Like if I'm dating
Is it
someone
like
and I'm
Speed
crossing
Racer
the
and
border,
you have to like fuck in a car that's going 80 miles an hour?
Race play is the racial version of age play.
Oh God.
So
I don't
someone
understand what
pretending
that means.
well, okay,
It's
so
someone
wait, so
pretending to be a different
I think we
race
might be
than they
missing
actually
something
are.
here too. When we say race play, I mean we're talking about furries here. How do we know we're not talking about furry races?
Oh my God.
Which would be any furry role play because they're not really that race.
I did say before that literally anything could be turned into a fetish. So I mean, like, shit, here I am.
Okay.
Being surprised by my own statement.
You got it, mummy man. Anyways,
In the cases I encountered, each patient had played a role of the victim in these scenarios. These individuals have reported a history of trauma directly related to their particular kink and expressed a belief that these role plays could act as a healthy reenactment, almost like do-overs of the original traumatic experience. So how does race play in?
Role play.
So I'm gonna put myself.
Like,
XD.
Hold it.
Like,
So
I'm getting
basically-
raped, but this time I'm black?
No,
Like-
I'm assuming that if you're looking for a do-over, as it suggests, if you were done, you know, not that this would ever be me suggesting one race would potentially be more rapey than the other. Maybe you're taking on certain characteristics of the race of the person that potentially did.
You know,
something.
that sounds incredibly racist, Anthony. Let's backtrack.
I was trying to do it as
Oh,
nice as I
yeah.
could.
Okay, I just Urban Dictionary race play, an avant-garde but increasingly accepted form of role play, where, come on,
Oh.
I know Urban Dictionary isn't like the most like best place to get a definition.
Oh no, I guarantee there's a bunch of Tumblr people going, "Oh, he went to Urban Dictionary." Oh, scoff.
I'm just trying to give myself
Urban
as much
Dictionary is the
context
best
as I
place
can.
to go to know what a kink is about.
Okay, so an avant-garde but increasingly accepted for sexual roleplay, which people of different races consensually reject all political correctness, especially verbal, and
Oh God, here we go.
property,
Propriety.
propriety in favor of sexual pleasure and for fulfillment. I'm not going to say that because Anthony, you're going to get instantly demonetized if I repeat this word. That
A African American
N-word.
gentleman, correct?
no, it's the N-word followed by the word sex.
Okay.
Oh my
Oh.
God.
Oh,
But it's all one word.
Jesse Jackson lovemaking, got it.
Okay, now that I'm over the whole race play thing, man, this psychiatrist had to deal with people who are interested in.
Maybe somebody just wanted to make believe that they were banging Flava Flav. I don't know.
Well, it looks like that from my perspective, it looks like that it's like done by people of that race who want people to like go back to the civil rights era. Like
that's what I suggested originally. So we're gonna get such comments down below.
Oh yeah,
I'm sorry. I'm
going to be one of them.
I blame Stuff.
I'm trying
that's
my best.
That's no doubt.
Sometimes the elf just wants to pretend to be a dwarf. It happens.
I don't pretend to
Now
be
use those elven slurs
Or a
against
kobold
me.
or a goblin or whatever the hell. I don't know.
Wait, you don't pretend to be dwarf? You're actually a dwarf?
No, I'm not a dwarf.
I've seen the elf. They're tall.
I'm a dwarf.
It's true. I've seen
I'm
it.
taller than Buttons.
Well, I mean, is that really hard?
I always picture Step being a midget. I know he's not.
Okay, let me just get back into this.
6'2".
I know.
In each of these cases I encountered, each patient had played the role of the victim in these scenarios. These individuals also reported a history of trauma directly related to their particular kink and expressed a belief that these role plays could act as a healthy reenactment, almost like do-overs of the original traumatic experiences. The main difference being that in these role plays, they ultimately have control, i.e., like a safe word, and were consenting, rather than experiencing yet another trauma. In this way, the acting out of these so-called problematic kinks may work in a similar manner to exposure treatment for PTSD, such as EMDR. I don't know what the fuck EMDR means, but I mean, that would be a great place to put a definition. Where the patient is asked to repeatedly describe the traumatic event while watching rhythmic movement. The idea of being that the formerly traumatizing data is being reassociated on a psychological and neurological level with neutral stimuli and state, with neutral stimulus and state. Perhaps with these types of kinks, the trauma can be realigned with a pleasurable stimulus and a positive state of interpersonal connection and energy exchange. Of course, these types of play, like most any intimate activity, comes with its risks, as one of the negatives sometimes I'm sorry, why am I talking like a retard?
Because you
rubbing
don't
off
want
on
to talk about this.
I'm sorry, it's just my mouth is getting tired.
Yeah,
it's
long. It's very goddamn long. Holy.
There's a lot of big words here that like
There's
I have.
definitely a big brain nibbo who wrote this.
We'll get
God damn it.
That's how you should have said that word earlier.
Okay. The idea being that the formerly traumatizing data being reassociated with psychological and neurological level with neutral stimulus and state. Perhaps with these types of kinks, the trauma can be realigned with a pleasurable stimulus and positive state of it. Interpersonal connection and energy exchange. Of course, this type of play, like most any intimate activity, because of its risks, as one of the negatives, the sometimes treacherous waters of psyche, vulnerability, shame, arousal, intense emotionality can all arise during these encounters. After care, as always, can be an important step to help contain and resolve feelings of chaos and liability. And the dynamic of those involved most certainly needs to be underpinned by honest communication in a general regard. And then its opinion, and then let's explore gray areas with this giant picture of gray. The gray areas of problematic kinks. Is that where I should be going?
That's why I was trying to direct you, but then you kind of, I guess, skim.
It just I've complained about the dude not having any like scholarly sources, and then he included one, so I figured that would be like something worth having.
Sure.
So I mean, if a psychiatrist actually says that sexual role play can be used to cope with that, and it's not just sexuality, but the actual roleplay itself, then I'll concede to them that point. That's good to know. Okay. Gray areas of
underneath this is indulgence of taboos. Maybe that's the payoff, so to speak.
Indulgence in fantasies of a non-abusive world.
No, it's here. Let's see. I'm scrolling up to gray area. Gray areas. Then the next one is indulgence in fantasies in non-abusive world. Then it's indulgence in taboos, which I'm assuming is the payoff.
Okay, let's.
Okay,
I scrolled down here and I saw
it could be the negative
said,
of problematic kinks. Maybe, I don't know.
So I scrolled down, right?
Yeah.
To the thing that said indulgence of in taboo, and I saw the thing that said commissions, but I originally but because I'm dyslexic, right? I read it as communists, and then okay, check mark, furry, any gender pairing, simple robots. Simple robots are okay to be communists.
Well,
wait, are you saying just a robot can be a
for anyone
communist?
who wants to know, the term for robosexuals is clunkers.
What the hell?
I want to die now. Before I commit ritualistic suicide, that'd be because I'm a depressed fuckboy. Let's do this.
Okay.
Indulgence in the taboo.
It could be the one underneath it, because that one basically says, like, warning or some shit. Let's see. Negative of problematic kinks, and then there's one underneath that says child sex abuse via media.
I think
is that where we should probably go?
Talking about cub porn or something.
Yeah, that's what
By the way, FNGR, are you going to be editing this at all? Like,
oh yeah,
I'm assuming you are. Okay, so you
could
could probably take out some of the stuff.
Well, here's what I'm doing. I'm going to put the good stuff in the front, but because some people are going to be like, oh, it's creepy reading, I'm just going to put like the boring crap on the back end.
All right, cool.
Yeah, which would be me talking at the part starting like a retard.
Yeah. I used the word I used that fucking word retard, but I was like called that all the time as a kid.
I
like,
don't give a shit. I say retard constantly.
I'm trying to be a bit more like politically correct. I have a potty mouth.
I understand Josh is taking your balls. No, I got it. It's okay.
No. I'll fucking cuss behind closed doors as I fucking want.
Hey,
you can't take that away from me. I'm into horror community. Damn it.
Did you read the article? I don't like that stuff, but commissioning art of yourself is a bit closer to a consenting adult's issue than other cases, and unprompted call on a rather low-value target might be less than effective, answering since you asked and deleting the tweet. This is a good article, and I'm happy it got submitted.